Medical receptionists can help people with intellectual disabilities get better healthcare by being welcoming, by talking to them, by making filling in forms easier, by using easy learning language and perhaps prompts, to making sure they've got a great place to wait and it's not so noisy, to identify the person with an intellectual disability and making sure that they follow through with confirmation of next appointments. So I think receptionists can make reminders easy for their next appointments if they can maybe help them put it in their diaries, or instead of sending an SMS, perhaps calling them the day before to remind them of their next appointment. I think with doctors it's really important that they understand their patients with an intellectual disability, that they give them time to process and then answer, and give them a lot of time to answer and give the answer within a long period of time if that's what they're needing. Double appointment's always good. If they're unsure, it's always best for them to talk to the patient and get clarification from perhaps a carer or someone there, but to make sure they give the opportunity to the patient with the intellectual disability the freedom to answer their questions first. It's really important that the person with an intellectual disability likes who they go to see, as in reception, nurses and doctors, as it makes them feel like they can trust their healthcare person that they work with. And they don't have to retell their story. So if they know the person that they're dealing with, it makes it so much more easier for them to give answers or to ask questions.
So I'm Kerry from Western Victoria Primary Health Network, and I'm one of the SPIDER team members with my colleague Nicole. Just before we start off, we do want to do just a little bit of housekeeping. So the toilets are just at the end of this corridor here to the right, as you step back into kind of like the cafe setting. The exits are at the front and the back, if for any reason that, and I hope not, but we need to actually tell you that information anyway.
If you see me running, because I never run, follow me and if there's an issue and I'll take you out to that way.
There you go. And for tea and coffee, we thought people might like to just go and get what they would like to have rather than having tea and coffee here. And of course we've got water, we can get refills during the day. So, yeah.
Perfect. So the work that Kerry and I are doing is called the SPIDER Project. So that stands for Supporting People with an Intellectual Disability to Access Health, and we're working at the Western Victoria Primary Health Network. So we'll pass over to Aunty Jane to do our Welcome to Country.
Thanks for that, Nicole. Yeah. Hi everybody, my name's Aunty Jane, and I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the, what's the time? Wadawon. Is that right?
Yes.
Sorry. Wadawon. Wait, I'm just starting. Because sometimes it takes me off the track. Know what I mean? Hi everybody. My name's Aunty Jane. I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the Wadawon people, to the traditional custodians of this land on where we are meeting upon today, for its elders and past and present, and even for the self-advocacy people who have passed away and who are still here today on Aboriginal land. Thank you everybody, from Aunty Jane.
So we'll go through a bit more of an introduction about the SPIDER Project, and you'll see on the slides we've got a picture in the top corner, and that's the person who's presenting the slide. So just to help us throughout today, the person's picture who's the person that's talking to the slide. So this one's me. So as we said, our project is supporting people with an intellectual disability to access health, and we're working with the Western Victoria Primary Health Network. So our focus is the primary healthcare system. And this is our project infographic of the spider web, and we think that's a really nice visual to show how people and health are all interconnected. So that's a picture that we commonly use with our work. So our project is funded for 3 years and is due to end on the 30th of June 2024. There are 4 primary health networks in Australia working in this space. So we are Western Victoria, and the others are based in Tasmania, Central Eastern Sydney and Central Queensland, Wide Bay and Sunshine Coast. The Council for Intellectual Disability, or CID, has also helped to develop some easy read resources, and they'll be made available in the toolkit that you'll receive in an email following the training. And we report federally and are funded by the Department of Health. So where our work fits in the broader picture is within the National Roadmap for Improving the Health of People with Intellectual Disability. This is a 10-year plan that was just released last year by Minister Hunt in 2021. So it has short-term, medium-term and longer-term actions to cover a 10-year period. And some of the key statistics that they have listed in the report, which is the reason why this work is so important, is that approximately 450,000 people in Australia have an intellectual disability, and compared with the general population, they often experience more than twice the rate of avoidable deaths, meaning that they're dying earlier of potentially preventable causes, twice the rate of emergency department and hospital admissions, higher rates of physical and mental health conditions, and they can often be overlooked, being attributed to a disability rather than an actual health condition, and also significantly lower rates of preventative health care. So that's some of the statistics from Australia, which is really demonstrates the importance of why we're working in this space. Over to you.
Thank you. So our definition of primary health care is a little bit broader than what you'd expect. And if you look at the new health plan, it also encompasses allied health professionals. So GPs and doctors, nurses in the clinics, practice managers, allied health professionals, mental health professionals, dentists and oral health professionals, pharmacists, and of course our Aboriginal community controlled health organisations, our ARCHOs, and reception and administration. Yeah.
Is that in Melbourne?
It's in Western Victoria.
Oh.
Yeah. I hope.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, ask me on the spot, Sharon. That's okay. I don't mind. I don't know them all. Yeah. Job. It's really important that, and we thank you very much for attending today, because we see the reception staff as integral to actually helping build the capacity of inviting people and patients into their clinic to actually help them access good health. And it's about whether a person and how comfortable a person feels when they come in, whether they do or don't have a disability isn't actually what it's about. It's about getting good health care right from the moment that you make an appointment, step in the door, and all the way through for the supports. So that's actually what we actually want to do, because we do recognise that for some people working in this space, everybody doesn't know some of the things that we need to do in terms of how we communicate to a person if they're non-verbal, or, you know, how things are done. And often there's workers or family members that are with the person, and then that changes that up a little bit. So we find that certainly our reception staff are a part of the bigger picture that we wanted to work on. Thanks, Nicole. So the Spider Foundation report we've now completed, and if you wanted to go and see it, you can go to the Western Victoria Primary Health page, which we've got resources for you at the end. What we actually did to start off with very quickly is between October and December last year, we did a co-design process. We wanted to go and do face-to-face and talk to carers, people with an intellectual disability, other community people that are invested and involved, like disability providers, primary healthcare professionals, and all of the people that were on that list there, to ask what's working well, what's not working well, where are the gaps, and what can we do to improve that. So the foundation report sets out the information about how we went about that and who we talked to. And these were the key themes that come out of it. So that sets out what our work is moving forward. So when we look at accessibility and reasonable adjustments, what you're going to learn, some of the things here today are about reasonable adjustment. But if we look a little bit more into some of the other areas, if a person's going to have, say, a mammogram and they can't manage to have a mammogram, they might end up needing to have an ultrasound instead. If a person needs to have some dental work done, they might need to go and have an anaesthetic to be able to have that different to what another person might do that doesn't have a disability. So what this is about is learning how that we can tailor things around for the person or the patient and make sure that we look at what adjustments are needed for them.
Well, it's like an EEG as well,
Yes.
like what you put on your brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing. And in that instance, Jane, it would be about helping the person understand before they even get there, thinking about what the machine sounds like, all of those things. Because if a person doesn't know, and to be honest, I haven't had one, so I would have that explained to me. So it may be that we put things in easy read or English, or we do a video to show what those steps are before. And then they're the things that help a person relax and feel comfortable and safe, which is what it's about. And often when you see behaviours of concern or people, out in the community and something happens, it's often because something's happened that they don't understand, or the alternative, they really want to go over there and not where you want them to go, like home or back to the centre. Yeah. We've had that experience.
Yeah.
In terms of the workforce, we did learn, and certainly we learned that often there's that expectation that people just know how to work with people with a disability, and well, actually that's not quite correct. So that's what the training is about, and we know that for whether it be GPs, practice nurses, whether it be pathology workers, we want to be able to help pave the way so that those bits of tweaking for reasonable adjustments can be done, and then we can actually, then people will feel better about working directly with the person with a disability rather than the supporter, and then they will also feel more comfortable and build that relationship directly with that person. For mental health, I can only tell you we're a long way behind. People with an intellectual disability often have a disability for lots of different reasons. And the mental health system is a system where we really need to do some solid work in to increase accessibility to services that anybody else would actually use. Head Help has just recently opened up in Geelong, so we've already been back to our clinical advisor who participated in that to say, what are we doing in terms of upskilling reception staff and then the workforce that would be doing the assessments, so that they're helping the person come and be comfortable, and it's in an easy language and information that people with an intellectual disability will understand. And the other thing I'll just mention there, the work that we're doing for you was rightly pointed out to me by a practice manager from Budja in Horsgate the other day, and she said, we'll be able to use this for lots of different groups, Kerry, not just people with an intellectual disability. I said, that's exactly right. People with Alzheimer's, there's just, so how we present information is what a reasonable adjustment is, rather than the old text. Lots of people can't read. And my mum can't, and has Alzheimer's, and she can't do the text thing, so she would need a phone call instead. That's a reasonable adjustment. Creating safer communities. Again, we've got the orange door opening for those that you probably know about, people that have constantly in a situation of being abused. I read some stats which absolutely smacked me in the face the other day, which basically said that young women with an intellectual disability are often sexually abused before the age of 16 years old. I was horrified. So we do need to do some space in this work about, again, educating and upskilling professionals that work in this space, and also supporting people with an intellectual disability about understanding their rights as well, and how to access services and get good support as well. Preventative health care, lots of people just don't, there's no promotional material or information about mammograms and, testicular cancer checks, all the things that other people might have. So it's looking at how we can look at better preventative health care. We will be looking at increasing annual health assessments for people with an intellectual disability, and then the preventative health care sits alongside that, along with their history and what they need to know to actually have better monitoring to hopefully then reduce premature deaths. The interface with other sectors. We are touching base with NDIS and hope to bring forward some information there that's useful, and certainly for GPs, because we feel that GPs need to know if a person has a package and is getting all of these other services, so that that's core information. And Dr. Robert Ward from one of the clinics down here is a presenter for some of the educational series we're doing. He said, I had a patient come in the other day and he said, they said, I've got an NDIS package and I'm getting counselling and I'm getting, I've got a speech therapist, and he said, had they have not told me that, I wouldn't know. Well, that to me is integral about knowing that they're getting a holistic lot of healthcare instead of him thinking, oh, they need that service when they actually, in fact, might have it. So that's where that comes in. Family services is another one. In Western Victoria, Horsham, Stall, there are often young women that have been sexually abused that end up pregnant. They then end up in the child protection system because often it's not known that they've been sexually abused, and if they have, they're not considered to be good witnesses through the courts to be able to say that, this is what happened to me, and often having someone to support them seems to be better than not, or the norm, unfortunately. But we're working with family services as well to try and stop the going through child protection, to make sure that we educate and upskill about abuse, but also the care of children, because often the parent will have an intellectual disability and then they will have children as well with an intellectual disability. So our interface is with a whole range of sectors, including tertiary, but only the steps through to tertiary. That means through to hospitals.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we're doing some videos and things with that. But I'm going to step aside and hand over now to Sharon and Aunty Joan to take over. Thank you, everyone.
So we're all here for reception staff training today and improving accessibility for people with intellectual disability. The Western Victoria Primary Health Network would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are meeting. We would like to acknowledge people with lived experience of disability and intellectual disability. We would like to acknowledge the important supports of their families, carers, disability service and advocates. Acknowledgement of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Australia is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Article 25 of the Convention states, parties recognise that persons with disabilities have the right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health without discrimination on the basis of disability. Very important. So, who are we? I'll start, Aunty Jane. So, my name's Sharon. I am a practice manager, had been a practice manager for over 10 years prior to working with the PHN. I'm now a practice facilitator, so I recognise Sarah, so occasionally I'll go out to different practices and help them with whatever they need. I have children with intellectual disability, so I'm extremely passionate about this because advocating for this for so long, it's really hard to, I suppose it's been really hard. My son's 24 and I've got another one who's 22, a stepson, so I suppose that continual fight for the last 20 years of getting the help that we need, or the, just the understanding for people, like when I used to take my son to the doctor's clinic and they used to look at me like, can you get this kid under control, but had no idea that the bright lights or the noise or him because he was not verbal for a while, not understanding what he was doing there was really upsetting him. So I suppose getting them looks from others and looks from doctors or people not understanding, because he looked quite normal, absolutely beautiful, but so people not understanding that. So it's really important that we identify people with intellectual disability and know how to care for them, and making it quite easy for them so they can go to get help when it's needed. So that's me, and I'll hand over to Aunty Jane.
Thanks. My name's Aunty Jane, and I was put into institutions from the age of 6 months old, I was, to 21. When it was 16, the government flipped it up to 21. And I, with that sexual abuse, what you were talking about, that happened to me from 16, 17 and 18, and 6 years old and 13 years old, that happened. In the institution which was called Pleasant Creek Training Centre, which was not so pleasant. And that. And if you want to, I don't know if any of you have seen my story, but if you want to watch it, it's Jane's Story on ABC Lateline. And there's the Tony Fitzgerald Award as well. I won the Tony Fitzgerald Award 2006, yeah. And it was travelling around with the Royal Commission, telling and talking to other people and Aboriginal people that their children were taken off their families, dumped into institutions and all this, that they have got a voice to be heard, to be, you know, and they are to be believed, and that as well. And even like these days now, that you can say that you're Aboriginal, because way back in the 1970s, 60s, 50s, 80s, you know, you weren't allowed to say if you were Aboriginal, and that, you know, in those days. But the organisations that I do go to are, and there's websites for these, it's called Reinforce, which is for people with an intellectual disability, which has been going since 1981. And it was demanding the government to close these institutions down because they were like jails, they were, and they were kept away from the community and not to be accepted. And that's what Reinforce is a self-advocacy group which is run by people with an intellectual disability. And we have a support worker, but the support worker is beside us. And I'm with the other organisations is First People's Disability Network, which is an Aboriginal organisation up in Sydney, which I'm on the committee with, and that. And then we do 3CR Radio, which is a radio in Fitzroy, and we talk about rights and all that. We do, and self-advocacy. Once I'm on a roll, I'm on a roll. Do you know what I mean? And then there's another one with Spine, which you know about, and then there's one with Villamanta, which Naomi's from, sorry. Yes. And there's another one called STAR, which is an organisation for parents with children with disability, you know, intellectual disabilities and all that. And then there's another one called Amina, which is in Ross House as well, and that's to do with housing for people with an intellectual disability as well. So, and there's another one called Open Place, which is for children who are taken off their families and dumped into institutions, and if they need counselling, if they want their files, or if they want to have a link to who their family members are, they are entitled to do that.
So Jane's got so much. No, you've got so much experience in this sector, and just so if you do get a chance to have a look at her story, it's very interesting. I have to say, I did shed a few tears.
Yeah.
Jane, your story was just amazing, and you're such an amazing person, and we're so happy to have you here and helping with our roll out this training.
Thanks, and I've even been through domestic violence as well.
Yeah.
And I'm as free as a bird now, and that's the way I'm staying for the rest of my life, because you only live once on this earth, I see. You're under the ground a lot longer than what you are alive, and when you're in dust, you can't speak. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I see it. Ever since I've left Dickhead, I'll say. You know.
Jane, this one's yours.
This one's mine. Okay, one time I start, you know what I mean?
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Please do not use difficult words. Speak slowly. Healthcare for people with an intellectual disability. Case examples. What staff can do to improve communication with people with an intellectual disability. Just with that, way back in my earlier days, I don't know if any of you have heard of this, but to learn to read and all that, have you heard of ITA?
No.
ITA was way back in the institution days, and it was like with two O's, oo, O and W, ow. And that's how we learnt how to read for simple words.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Good.
So, what do you hope to learn in this section? So, receptionists can make a big difference to someone's health experience. What do you hope to learn today? So, I suppose what we wanted to do was to make sure, because when you go into a practice or into somewhere that has reception, it's really good to understand, once you get to know who your patients are, you sort of and identify the patient that has an intellectual disability, because you cannot always know by looking at someone that they've got an intellectual disability. I had one receptionist who used to say to me, this man comes in, he doesn't look at me in the face, I ask him a question, he just stands there. Further on down the track, I had a conversation with him, and he told me that he had autism. So that was really hard for him to go to. The receptionist used to look at him really, because she knew the troubles that she'd had with him previously. So we sat down with him and had a bit of a chat, and spoke to our doctors about perhaps letting all the staff know. So we had like we used to just use intellectual disability like ID in our software, so we could start identifying patients and make it easier for them to come into the clinic. So if the gentleman needed a little bit more time to say what he wanted to say and who he was, we understood that. We understood he was extremely intelligent, but he was uncomfortable sometimes talking to different receptionists. Once all the girls got to know, and the nurses and the doctors, that he needed a little bit more time, it was so much nicer for him. It was a nicer experience for him and the receptionist, because she would understand, oh, he's not being rude, or he just does not like me because he's not looking at me. They were I suppose they were hard for him to do that. So that was one really big example. He didn't like to sit in the waiting room, because we had 18 doctors, so you can imagine it was a very busy, loud waiting room with screaming kids and all different types of people there. So if we didn't have a spare room, he'd come and sit in my office with me, which was really, really lovely. And then he would take a notion, because the doctor would say that he would get up at 10 minutes, even if they were in mid-sentence, because it was a 10-minute appointment, and just walk out the door, because he was very literal. So they decided, the receptionist knew that it took a little bit more time to have these chats with this individual, and we always made a double appointment, so next to his name in the computer package that we used, I think it was best practice, it would have patient needs double appointment. Patient needs a phone call, because he didn't always read his SMSs, or sometimes he couldn't organise himself that way. So he needed a phone call the day before to be reminded of his appointment. He would bring in a list instead of trying to get all that information out of what he wanted to talk to the doctor about, because he would forget certain things. The receptionist knew to give him small bits of information, and also to always write him a card with the appointment, so he could have that, because sometimes that wasn't done if it was a really, really busy, the receptionist just didn't have time to write down the next appointment. So it was just small things like that. He came in more regularly, he got to know the staff members. It became really delightful to have him, because there was no more the girls feeling nervous at the front desk. They totally understand that this behaviour was not malicious, or he wasn't angry with them, it was just the way he presented.
And can I just bring in something?
Yeah.
Like with the girls and that or even boys who have grown up in these institutions, and if they were sexually abused themselves on what happened to them when they were a child, which doesn't go away, when they see a doctor, they always like to see, like, if they were sexually abused by a man in the institution, and if they want to see a doctor, they'll rather see, like if it was a lady, they'll see a lady doctor. If it was a man, and if they were sexually abused by a man, they'll want to see, not a man doctor, a lady doctor. But then it'd be opposite. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Because it never goes away. Yeah. Like, it never goes away with me. Yeah. Because of what happened to me from when I was a little girl. Yeah. That's why when I go to the doctor, I make sure I've got a lady with me. I do, and even with my caseworkers. I make sure that I have a caseworker, because I'm on the NDIS. And I heard about something else with this NDIS as well. I don't know if you've heard of Naomi. But after you've been on the NDIS over 65, there's this other mob that try and manipulate disability people to change from NDIS to something else. When they can stay on the NDIS until they're about 80 or 90 years old. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm letting you know all that. But that's what I heard just sorry for jumping in about
No, no,
that.
thank you, Aunty Jane, appreciate it. So our learning outcomes today. At the conclusion of this training, participants will be able to identify reasonable adjustment, or as like Aunty Jane likes to say, small adjustments, to standard practice that help to overcome barriers to healthcare commonly experienced by people with intellectual disabilities. We can then identify resources available to promote best practice when providing healthcare reception support for people with intellectual disabilities. Identify responsibilities of primary healthcare clinics and their staff to ensure their services is accessible without discrimination in line with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with a Disability.
And even for the ones who can't speak, if they want to do say something about a doctor, or you know what they're going to the doctor for, you can either read their body language or you can have pictures on what do they want to point to, which one, about the doctors. Because there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Yeah.
This one's
Oh,
yours, Aunty
sorry.
Jane.
Once I'm on a roll. Healthcare for people with an intellectual disability. It can be hard and difficult. It can be hard to access good health. Health people are not confident.
Not confident.
Confident,
Yeah.
yes.
What does that mean? Health people are not confident?
I think what that's trying to say is that they're not confident in sometimes dealing with people with intellectual disability. We'll change that because it really doesn't make
it
sense.
doesn't really well, does it?
Yeah, so we'll change that, but I think it's...
Yeah, that was a good point that you picked up.
Thank you.
And have I seen you before?
I work at GNU in Belmont at head office.
Yeah.
So you may perhaps
There
see
you
me
are.
once.
I don't forget faces.
No, you've got a good memory, Aunty
She
Jane.
has.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's faces I remember, names I don't, and I have seen you before somewhere.
I'm right there when you walk in the front door.
There you go, that's why, yes.
Yeah, so I think that's what that's trying to say, and some health people aren't confident because, as Aunty Jane, you made a really good point to me. Sometimes when Aunty Jane goes to the doctors,
Yeah.
they will talk to the person with her and not
That's
her.
right, yes.
And that makes Aunty Jane, not comfortable because she's there about her health care. The other person's there to support her.
Yeah.
So she prefers people
Yeah.
speak to you, don't you?
That's
Aunty Jane?
right, like, because when I go to the Aboriginal Health Service, I do have a caseworker, like I'll quickly give you an example, okay? One of my caseworkers that I had going back a while ago, when it was her first time meeting me, and it was all good, I had to go and see the doctor, I had to, at the Aboriginal Health Service, and then when we were in the doctor, and when the doctor was finished talking to me and that, saying, any more? I go, no, okay. And then the nurse said to me, are you ready to go now, Jane? So I just kept going, I just left her and I went out with her. And when I was outside, I had a word to her and I told her. And I said, put your other hat on, because she has two hats. One working with people that she does the talking for them. The other is wintering home, when the people should be talking, not the staff. And I said, when you're with me, take that hat off, put the wintering home hat on, and leave it up to me, thank you.
Yeah.
And I said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, good example, Jane.
Yeah.
Jane? Yep.
Good health, care, an example. Not the flag, that's not sick. Sorry. Responsible and adjustment.
So reasonable adjustment.
Well, what did I say? Responsible, did I?
They're not the same.
Oh, okay.
And usually you like to say small adjustments.
Yeah. Small changes that can make a big difference. Takes away barriers that would stop someone getting good health care. Your role is very important to listen at reception.
So, with your experience, what do you think is working, say at your clinics or where you are? You were saying that you work at GNU, sorry.
I'm the our front house here for the community centre in disability at the other end of the building. But we actually designed our front of house counter that it has this level and wheelchair level. So there's no looking down, that they're having to look up the wheelchairs, and that was specifically in mind for that.
That is
So,
really good.
Yeah,
That is
so
good.
it can
That is
be
so
different.
Yeah.
That height or that height.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you got any examples?
Well, prior to COVID, we didn't have a big perspex screen, and now that we do, when I see someone come in who's either physically disabled or who I know to have intellectual disability, I just walk straight around and greet them on the other side of the counter, so they're not trying to yell through the perspex screen, or if you're in a wheelchair, they're not trying to look up at me. Just so that we've got that, haven't got that barrier between us. I mean, obviously during the height of COVID, I had to stay behind the screen, but now the things would be more relaxed. So I'll just go around, and if it's an elderly person on a frame, walking frame, I'll usually say, why don't we go over here and have a seat? And I'll sit down and find what they're coming for and how I can help them rather than have them standing at reception.
I love that you brought up an elderly person too,
That's-
because
yeah.
sometimes they have the same needs. They may
Yes.
not have the intellectual disability, or they may, we don't know, but it's really important that we look after all people
Yeah.
with different needs.
And anyone when they do the sign language, so the ones who can't speak.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Sarah? What are you using at your clinic?
I don't think we're doing anything sort of specific. We've got, obviously it's a very busy reception area, so we made the judgment call, I think it was at the start of April, to take down the perspex screens, just to sort of limit the noise and everything else that's going on, which I think has made a big difference.
Yeah, to allow that communication, because that was definitely something that was lacking with the screens.
Yeah, I feel like I don't even have a hearing, or not that I know of, I haven't been tested, but sometimes within, because I'm quite softly spoken, I can't always hear what people are saying, and I don't know if they can hear me either, so that was a barrier. So
I think with the masks as well, and you can't even breathe it.
Yeah.
It was a big barrier, so yeah, we got staff feedback on that, decided it was the right time to take it out for us.
And I think a lot of elderly people tend to wear masks all the time, you know,
Yes.
consistently since kind of COVID began, understandably. So it's always that double, you know, we have the same kind of issue we find with the perspex screen. It's just easier just to walk all the way around.
It's a shame, isn't it? It really makes it
is.
very personal.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you know it's been put there for a good reason and to
Yeah.
protect everyone and all the right things. But sometimes you just kind of duck around or walk around. It's easier.
And the big room, people with
Yes.
Yeah.
very true.
We have a client, a regular client, who comes in, he's deaf, and he also, well, because he's deaf, I find it hard to understand what he's saying. So first thing I'll do when he comes in, he starts talking, is I'll give him a piece of paper and a pen, and I'll go over to the way near and I'll sit down with him and he kind of writes out his note and I'll have a look at it, and then we'll chat about that, and then I might, he might write something else down, and we work it out like that.
See, that's a great example of small adjustments or reasonable adjustments to suit your patient. So that must make that patient feel really comfortable, and plus yourself to have an understanding of what's happening, because no one likes, I don't know anyone that works in the healthcare system or in a system where we're trying to help people that don't want to help people. So I think it's identifying and knowing those things in advance so we can do that. It's really important.
And I was just going to say, even like people who are from other countries who have got an intellectual disability or different disabilities, or even with the Aboriginal people who can just speak that one language of their land where they were brought up in, and that, then you can get other people to do that sign language, you know what I mean? Whatever we call
There's
it.
Auslan,
Yeah.
there's a couple of different
Yeah.
We also use like we've got a communication book
Yeah,
that has like that we use.
Oh, yeah.
basic picture board.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
picture board, and it's
fantastic.
got like numbers, letters, everything. You can just flick through it and make point things. And
that's
so
good.
That's really good. Are they like Compics? I know when kids on the spectrum or non-verbal people, they have these little pictures that they can stick out.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I wish that came around 20 years ago. That's awesome that you're
Yeah,
using that. I don't think a lot of people are incorporating that, so well done, guys.
Yeah,
That's
really
good. Yeah, and even for Braille.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think's not working in your clinics? I know sometimes the barriers we don't have enough staff members to perhaps to spend that extra time, so we can look at other things like, I think we talked about having a sign with Medicare card, maybe pension card, or, that we could just point to have that already there and ready. Has anyone got examples? I know the barriers weren't working for you now, so you've taken them down. Is there anything else, guys, that you think's not working at the moment?
What about, have you heard about the Access Mikey card? Because there's people with, I don't know if you've heard about it, but I've got one in my bag, and it's for people with an intellectual disability or different disabilities. If they are having trouble trying to put money on the card, they can get a photo ID with the Access Pass of their Mikey.
Oh.
And they can just show that to the those security guards, or those people that come on the train. I'll show it to you.
I think, Aunty Jane, it's a really good thing. Like, if it would be great for people with an intellectual disability or different disabilities just to have a card with.
And that's what that is.
If you tell you what their disability is and
Yeah.
what you can do to help them,
Yeah.
how you can help them
And
communicate with you.
That's right, and every 5 years we get a new one from the transport thing and that. Yeah. So, which is good.
And what are the gaps? I know when I was a practice manager, I found that some of my GPs didn't realise, having an intellectual disability or a disability gives you, they're able to use more chronic condition plans and things like that, because it's a lifelong condition. So just making sure that my doctors knew about that, and that we were doing reviews and, making sure that we were capturing these people so they were getting the proper health care that they needed. So that was really important as well. And the ideas for improvements, I think you guys have given us some really great ideas about improvements and what's needed. I think, Robin, I really liked the idea that you go around and actually speak to the person if needed. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a really good, just sometimes going close to someone and acknowledging them and makes them feel a bit more comfortable.
And not speaking loud. We tend to notice that people from the public will realise, oh, I can spell this, so, that's the cat I saw you. But they'll talk really loud or really childish with me.
Yes. And it's just condescending.
Just keep
level tone.
Or, as you mentioned earlier, they'll speak to carer, but not address the actual
I know, that's not right.
Yeah.
Because, it's the patient,
Yeah.
the person that came with the disability to the
They're the
doctor.
primary person.
That's right, yeah.
That's right.
The nurse is just there if the person asks the nurse, what does that mean? Or, I don't understand properly what the doctor's saying.
Yes.
They're
there to assist.
Yeah, just to support and that, yeah.
And Aunty Jane, you're able to say to the doctor, I don't understand, could you tell me
That's
what
right.
you mean?
Yeah. But there are some people out there that don't know how to ask a doctor, what does that mean? The ones who can talk like me, and who've got the confidence can do it. But even for the ones who can still talk, but they might need that little support to lift them,
Absolutely,
to ask
totally
them,
agree.
because the people that are out there that are still, like way back, when I was living in Dickhead, I was always staying back in the past. But after I left Dickhead, that's when I realised that you only live once, and I'm free as a bird now, and I'm not going back in the past. But it is always there. When I'm at the doctor's, I make sure the doctor faces me and talks to me in plain English.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
You can also prompt people to make sure that they're taking the information you've given them.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people just say, yep, and they don't take it in. So you can ask them, is there any questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah.
Or
Is that okay?
if there's a way to get them to repeat back what the important dot points of the information you've given them, like when their next appointment is.
Yep.
That's a great point.
Does a Thursday suit you, or?
Such a good point. Like my son, who speaks so well and communicates so well. I have to say, can you dumb it down, mate? I don't understand what you're saying. Half the time he uses such big words and things like that. But his recall is not great, so he can go to the doctors by himself.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but you know what, Aunty Jane, I say to him, so what did the doctor say? He'll say to me, I can't remember.
Because sometimes you can give people too much information.
Yeah.
And then they'll just nod and smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being able to pick up on those cues that, okay, they didn't get everything, let's make sure they got what was really important out of what I just told them.
So I suppose that came with now, so I don't have to, because he's a man, he doesn't need his mum to come go to the doctor's with him. The doctor will print out his results or something and just write a few key messages, and I'll say, how'd you go, mate? And he'll say, yeah, and read off the page. So he probably didn't recall it. Hey, it's not exciting to him. I'm sure if I asked him about the dog next door and what they've been doing, because he loves animals.
And that's a reasonable adjustment you were talking about.
Absolutely.
Just writing it down in dot point.
Absolutely. So I think that's a really important thing.
Another thing came to my mind when you were talking. When you're in that, like the CAUs, I've still got mine in my files from the 1980s and 70s, but mainly in the 80s. What are they called? There's questions right along. So many questions, and with these questions, with the person with a disability, it'd be a good idea sometimes when you go over these questions on this thing. I can't think of what it's called, but I've got them in my file at home. And it's from when I was in the institution, but in the CRU, community residential units in those days, in the 80s. And I was just thinking with the people that are going to the doctors, what you should do is just put these in their file, saying they need more practice or they need someone to go with them just to help them or let them ask them the questions, you know what I mean? All that type of stuff. Yeah.
To me, I don't have any people contact, like very, very, very minimal with any clients, but it's all over the phone for me.
Yeah.
And it's all about just listen.
Yeah.
Just listen and just respect, really.
That's right.
I think, and I do that with everyone. It's not people with disability, it's not anyone, it's everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone is treated the same for me. I always go back to years and years ago. You go into a medical clinic and they're so stale. You can go up to the receptionist, they won't even acknowledge you for like minutes until you cough and say, excuse me, but I'm here. And they'll go, oh, did you sign in over there? And it's like, well, hang on, but can't you even say hello? Like, you know. So to me, and because I'm old, I believe that you treat everyone with respect, and that's just how I see life, yeah. So regardless of what they are, culture, disability, whatever, everyone's the same.
Yeah.
And it's all about listening.
Yeah, that's great
and
values to have,
respect.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's
Like
really
you said,
important.
if you can't get to someone straight away, you have to at least acknowledge them.
Yeah, I always acknowledge.
Eye
Yeah,
contact,
yeah.
a wave, a smile, eye
Yeah.
contact.
And most of the time, if I am on the phone, I stand up and I'm waving.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sitting there, you know, totally ignoring that person. It's all about, I always stand up if someone comes in, anybody, Courier, you name it, anyone. You stand up and acknowledge them.
That's right.
Because everyone's equal to me.
That's right, that's how
Yeah.
I see it too.
Yeah.
It's not like those olden days when we were kept separate from the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were you going to say?
Jane, I think I know the chance you're referring to.
Yeah.
Ask you some questions that might explain what you mean by those. So for some people, when they go to the doctor, they might have someone with them.
Yes.
Will it always be the same kind of person?
It would be a good idea to get that same person to go to the doctors with them, because if you do go to the doctors with that same person will know to get their files, and they'll know that person like real well, and then that person will get used to that same person and all that.
And if you went to the doctor with another person, would you expect the receptionist to ask you, who is this person? Are they going in with you? Are they allowed to hear what you talk about? What is their job for you? Would that be helpful so that they know what's private, what you are happy to share, what you want them to leave for, what they need to write down for you, but what they need to also not stick their nose in?
Yes, Yeah, that's right, because I'd always make sure at the reception when I do go to the doctors, and if I've got my caseworker, I would always make sure that the person talks to me, not the worker. And then if I do need the the nurse or caseworker to come into the doctor with me, it's up to me if I want them to come in. And then they just sit like 2 chairs there, they put that chair back, leave that one at the front, and I talk to the doctor. And then if I need anything, I just look back, and that's when they explain.
So reception staff could help understand.
Yeah,
This person wants to talk straight to the doctor,
that's right.
but at the end, when the doctor's saying what happens next, grab the
Yeah.
person to make
Yes.
notes, or this person wants them the whole time.
If
The reception staff could help set up.
Yeah, like if the person can talk like I am, the person can just stay back. But then if there's a person that cannot talk properly or cannot understand, long words or that, towards the end, that person can just say, can you just come up the front, just up to the desk, and then I could just say, what's the next appointment, and then they can just write that down on a piece of paper for me, and then they can copy it and put it in their file or in their diary, give me the piece of paper, and then I can just wait for the next time when the doctor's...
And maybe reception could help
Yeah.
explain to the doctors, this is
That's
Jane,
right,
she's
yes.
got Mary with her.
Yeah.
Mary doesn't make Jane's decisions,
No,
but she helps to write some things down.
yes,
So the doctor understands.
that's
And
right.
if Jane needs her, she'll
Yeah.
let you know to ask her to come in.
Yeah, and then if I haven't got my diary, what I sometimes do is I go home, ring them up again, then I go, yeah, that date's okay,
Yeah. Once you're
Yeah.
home and you're sitting down with
That's
the
right,
diary.
yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
That was a good point.
That was
Catherine,
great.
that
Yeah.
we interject and say, and how would you like to
Yeah,
go about this appointment?
yeah.
To me though, that should just be common, like said, like knowledge. Like you don't go into, I even go with my children, okay, to the doctors, they're older, but even when they were 16, the doctor would actually talk straight to my child. And I would sit there and I think, hey, hang on a minute, but hey, I'm the parent here. But they would constantly talking to my daughter, parent, teacher, everything. They're actually talking straight to your child and you're just on the side. So to me, I don't understand whether you've got a disability or not. Why aren't they talking directly to the person, the actual person that they're there for? They're treating them like they're insignificant, like, that's where maybe at medical school they need to also do something extra, because it's not, you've got that person on the side there to assist them, of course, but they should be responsible for themselves as well.
Are you talking about with the nurse or the patient?
The patient, the doctor should be
Looking at the patient.
at the patient. I don't even know why they
not the
wouldn't.
nurse.
It's almost
Unless-
like treating them very
Yeah, I know what you mean.
insignificant.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would do that.
So one of the things that is happening as part of this, the national roadmap, it has been recognised that lots of GPs and doctors, when we were talking about confidence before, aren't confident. Dr. Robert Ward was telling us he had 2 trainees, doctors in with him, and they do very little to no information or training around intellectual disability, or how to discuss with a person, or how to use easy words or easy language. It sounds easy, but it's not. And if you've got a busy practice where you're going really quick, these are why that it's being impressed that we need to make reasonable adjustments. We had one family member come forward that said her son takes a good minute to process information. So you were saying earlier about when you say information and then you want the person to sort of say back, yeah, I understood what you were saying. Well, that can take 2 to 3 minutes to do that. And she said, and as a parent, it's really hard because it takes a lot of time, but that's that reasonable adjustment that would be needed if going to a health professional to actually take that time. And I feel that in today's society we do everything really fast, and with people with an intellectual disability, everything can't be done fast. It has to be done at
a time and in a process and a way
slower,
and then that takes time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is looking at putting a profile on the person's file, which has got an alert attached to it, which I think that Sharon will talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
So, can I get you to do this one,
Yeah.
Jane?
I need support to book the appointment. I need support with filling out the forms. I need support to understand if I have to pay. So, has anyone here helped people here filling out forms?
Yes.
Yeah? And have you explained what the forms are about?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's good.
But having said that, in the notes I've written that, if anyone asks my opinion later, I can say, I think that it would be really helpful if there were two types of forms. One for people that have a learning difficulty or an intellectual disability, and then one for people who don't need it in that simplified form.
Good
Rather
idea.
than the same information to everybody. So for example, you might have, I've written down an example here, instructions. You might say, all right, you're going to have these tests, fasting, the doctor wrote fasting.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will know that means when I go to have this test in the morning, I can't eat from 12 p.m. the night before or early morning. But for a person with a disability, you might have separate instructions for them, and it might say, when you wake up in the morning, do not have any breakfast and do not have a drink until after you get home from having your blood test.
That's it, yes.
And then there could be a picture of a cup of tea and a piece
I'm
of
just
toast
gonna
with a
say that.
cross.
Thinking about water, a lot of times you can have water for the veins, so
So you could put, you may have a glass of water.
Yes.
Rather than just say fasting.
That's right, yes.
And often everybody gets the same information. It's
Yeah.
not. At GNU, during COVID, I've only been here for 2 years, so basically I started just as COVID was here in Australia. But over COVID, I noticed when they did massive mail-outs to all our supported clients explaining that, now that COVID's here, we're doing things differently, we won't be having as many face-to-face meetings, so we're done on the phone. For some of our clients, there was a simplified letter. It was dot point, very simple language, and a little picture next to it. And then the next dot point, so they condensed what was in a paragraph, and a little bit, technical, to just simple instructions. We won't visit you during COVID. We don't want you to get sick. We'll ring you on the phone and a picture of a phone. And I thought, what a great idea.
And I was just thinking, actually, when you were talking about COVID, I was just thinking, because they mightn't have heard the name COVID, that when that did come out 2 years ago, what did any of you explain to the client about COVID, since they've not heard about it? What did you explain to them, and if they understood what COVID was?
In my role as reception, I wasn't in a role where it would be my job to explain that to someone. Unless they ask me, then I explain that it's like a cold but much worse. Well, that's a bit simplistic. But with our clients, their coordinators or their carers would have had a way of explaining what was happening. I don't know what that way was because I'm not involved in that side of it. But you're right. It would have had to have been explained to people.
That's right. And even you would have probably had to explain if you did get the COVID and if you got it real bad, and you can explain a person dying
from it,
or sick, very sick, or in bed.
Yes. And no doubt, Jenny would have had to have alerted our clients who are on their own that if you feel sick at all, ring your doctor straight away. And talk to your doctor or ring us. And we'll advise you what to do next. Because often people feel a bit sick, they just go to bed. They don't think, oh my gosh, I've got a temperature and I'm already feeling well. There's a virus going around, it's a pandemic, maybe I better get something done. A lot of people with an intellectual disability wouldn't realise.
No.
Or they might not even feel the symptoms, because some of them, I hot or cold.
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
he knows it's a hot
Yeah.
day because everyone's got their jumpers off and jackets off, but he doesn't feel it. So there's different people with different almost. Yeah, so I think it's a superpower. I tell you, it's a superpower.
I
Like
don't
it's
know
so
how Jen you handled that, but, because it's sort of out of my area. But yeah, I'm sure they would have had to have.
Yeah, my part of that, it was more the anxiety, continually, daily, multiple phone calls of clients. They understand the COVID, but it's more the restrictions. Why do I have to stay in my house? I said, remember, because where you're not only you've got to stay in the house because of the virus, but why? Why can't I go down to the supermarket? Or that's more than 5 k's from my house? Or why can't I go to the pool? Why are they closed? They know why, but it's just continually multiple times a day the same phone calls. The anxiety.
Absolutely.
That's right,
And Jane, the next point,
Yeah.
is staff should remind people of the appointment by SMS or phone call. Now, I suppose I wanted to pinpoint this because Kerry had a really good example of this that I'd like you to share with everyone.
We've had a complaint come through to us that actually came from a clinic, and it was a person with a disability, and that person has an advocate as well. And he asked, instead of sending an SMS because he can't read, could they please give a phone call? And they said no. So his advocate then contacted the clinic and said, would you mind SMSing either me or the person's parent of the appointment as a reminder? And the clinic said no.
That's unbelievable.
That's disgusting.
It is sad that that's still a reality. That's a complaint that we had through. We did recommend that complaint be formalised.
Not everyone has a mobile. What do they do then? Not everyone
Well,
has
that
a
wasn't
mobile,
in
whether it's
store.
disability or not.
That's
Not everyone
right.
has a mobile.
No.
So there must be other ways
I'm just
to.
guessing.
I guess that comes back to then a card.
You know what? Privacy. They'll say it's a privacy that they can't. But then, because I'm going all through all of this stuff, because my dad's just died. So everything, there's certain things, oh no, you can't do this because of privacy. And it's like, oh my God, I'm on there as a like my mum's put me on different things, but still because of privacy. So,
With privacy though, you can have it listed next to the person's name. For instance, if I was going to ring on Aunty Jane's behalf or something, and I probably wouldn't, she wouldn't be the person. Anyway, if I was doing that, I would say, I have Aunty Jane here with me, and Aunty Jane would then talk to them and give that permission to them, and it could be put on their file and noted that that's the case, or the person that they speak to. So those things can be managed, and in this instance, certainly the person with the intellectual disability did say that this is my advocate and this is my parent. Could you please contact them? So the instructions were very clear as to what would work. So privacy there wasn't a barrier because it had been a formal request. They had chose not to do that to support the person to even give a phone call. And we've had lots of different complaints over the time where there just seems to be a bit of a barrier. So hence why I guess it's a good thing that we've got people like yourselves in here that are willing and open to actually help. I guess start to bring that about in the community as a bit of an expectation that as you've put forward, it just should be what you do. It shouldn't just be what happens.
Did they explain why they said no?
No, they didn't go into why they'd said no.
But what did they charge just for, if I think they had a policy, didn't they, of if you didn't turn up for the appointment, you would be charged a fee. So they charged.
That happened quite a bit in Western Victoria.
Yeah.
People that have anxiety and often won't turn up for appointments, if they have a bad experience, they won't turn up for appointments.
Or if they forget and can't be reminded, they're not going to turn up.
Or if they get COVID and then they haven't given enough notice.
All of those,
Yeah.
and they were just charging for the appointments, and then what would end up happening is service providers would then end up having to pay for that, and that money would go to appointments because they wouldn't let them return. And if there's only a couple of clinics in the small country towns where they go, so there is a lot of things that happen over time where if people take that time to communicate, and again if that information's on the file, Joey over here needs for you to give a phone call rather than an SMS because he actually can't read. That's a reasonable adjustment, isn't it? It's simple. It just seems
seems simple, and so we were,
I thought it was that's great example.
It's just common sense, isn't it? You shouldn't even need rules.
It's so
or
not
guidelines. You should just know
yeah.
that's what we'll do.
I agree. Look, I agree, but as I've been told, common sense is not always common.
No.
Staff should support to fill out the forms. I need to be welcomed. I need to be comfortable. I need to be listened to. Staff should support people to have a quiet place to wait, because there is people with disabilities and intellectual disabilities that they have got anxiety and all this, and there is people out there that, like, I can remember there were certain places that I couldn't go to because it brought back those days. Or when I used to have epileptic fits, which I've had a brain surgery in 2004, there used to be some places that I couldn't go, but it used to make me hot in the head and that. And it used, because of my fits, there were things that would trigger and it would bring the hot head come. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Important, yeah.
Staff should talk to me even when there is someone supporting me. I need to understand what I need to do next. The doctor needs to explain the next steps. Staff should support me to understand paperwork I get, like medication scripts, results or other information. Staff should support me to put my next appointment in my diary with a list of what I need to bring next.
So here's a case example. 51-year-old man, identifies as Aboriginal, enjoys gardening and Star Wars, mild intellectual disability, speaks to communicate, lives with mother Sherry, recently lost father and lost job. Mental health history on antidepressants, becoming more irritable. Teenager, adolescent, mild intellectual disability and autism, transitioning through puberty, identifies as part of the LGBTQIA community, social challenges in school setting, enjoys video games, works at the local cafe with support, eligible for Centrelink healthcare card, may be eligible for NDIS, parent involved in health appointments. So Amelia, early 30s, love cats, cooking shows, intellectual disability and cerebral palsy, uses non-verbal communication, lives in a group home, social day program, 5 days a week, history of abuse and mental health problems, staff report, recent history of sexualised behaviours. So in reception, we need to consider what if this patient has an intellectual disability, what stays the same, what changes. So do we want to have a quick discussion or so when we're, I suppose, what stays the same when we're in reception? So I think, look, for me, I think the most important thing is identifying, because it's very hard sometimes to identify the person with the intellectual disability or with, we just might not know. So whether or not you get together as a group in your practice and have some sort of coding or something so you know who's got an intellectual disability, and then you can suit for what needs that they need, perhaps some notes in the note section. And what changes? So what changes, what can we do? Perhaps we can put them in a room by themselves, so if you've got a spare room, they may not
sensory rooms.
Yeah,
A sensory room would be great to have on site at everything.
Oh,
One of the things that was brought up by some of the parents is to give the doctors like half an hour late or an hour late, reception ring prior to the appointment to say, listen, they're running about this late, maybe come down about 20 minutes before, sit in the car and we'll pop out and get you. instead of you actually coming in, because the person's more comfortable in the car. That's really helpful. One of our parents works at Pinnock, and her daughter is severely disabled, and she said it is a huge ordeal to actually bring her daughter to an appointment. She's 16 years old, she's in a wheelchair, she's severely disabled. So it's understanding how hard that is, and then if she starts to escalate with behaviours, because she's agitated, it's taking too long. So those little things that are those reasonable adjustments.
First appointments too,
Yeah.
so a lot of people with different needs as well, mental health needs along with the diagnosis perhaps, will take the first appointment because it'll be a little less quiet, they don't have to wait because it's a doctor's first appointment as such, or last appointment. Some other clinics I know give the last sort of appointment, so they're relatively running on time, or they can let them wait in the car and just bring people out. So that always sort of works in the clinics also.
And another thing I thought of is sometimes when the reception for people who are at the reception, sometimes they might be there for about 5 years or 6 years. They might want to change. Then they've got to start all over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So having some sort of, I suppose, communication book in the reception. So if because we know, especially in this at the moment with COVID times, that we've had high turnover and change of staff members.
Coffees might be approved up.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome,
they
thank you.
And part of the sensory room at the Geelong Football Club is take a grandson to get him from the top of the stand down to the second front seat is a nightmare for a while because of the
We can pass the board. We
people
can pass them around.
and they have a backpack that I can sign out after the same routine in the room. Then he gets his backpack and all the earmuffs, sunglasses,
Yep.
light,
Such a good
maybe
idea.
something as simple as supposed to, and little sensory things just in that little backpack, and he'll sit somewhere anywhere. We can take him anywhere now as long as we've got those sort of, depending on what's annoying him.
That's really good. And is that in saying that because some parents have got intellectual disabilities, so they may not know things like, they might not put that together, so wouldn't that be great as...
Salt lamp, low lighting in one area.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that's excellent. That's
Sorry, the lady just was asking about some coffees.
Let's just, should we do the coffees and then you can get back to it?
That's great.
Joe, sorry, I didn't know what
Do you mind if we have that here off? It's just blowing straight on us and it's really hot. Doesn't have to be cold, yeah. Thank you. I'm just sitting in the wrong spot to get the blast right away. Yeah.
That's mine. That's your fault. Copy.
Soy milk latte.
Is that better?
Yeah.
The heater, is that better for you?
Yes, that's better.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Excellent. So there are some easy changes that we can incorporate from our day to day, and that's just some easy changes, I think, too. Even in one of the rooms we had a little radio in one of the rooms, and we used to just play really low music, just as a calming place as well. But once my staff knew, and honestly, we didn't have a high changeover at that particular time due to COVID, so we got to know our patients. But if we've got something at reception too for new staff members, just to to look out for, like a key if you're going to use ID as a intellectual disability for a patient, like a code, just things like that, so they're aware when they come on board. But that sounds like some really good changes, I think. They don't have to be huge changes, it's just small changes to make people feel comfortable.
And make them feel welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we do want them to come back, and we do want them to get the health care that they absolutely need. So
Yeah. And even for Indigenous people with disabilities too.
Very true. So,
respect is the first one. Good relationships, which is a good idea to have good relationships with people with a disability. Culture-friendly communication, change, small changes. What staff can do to improve communication with people with an intellectual disability? Choosing time of the day that works well. having longer appointment times, seeing a doctor and health people who already know me, sorry.
With the bottom, yeah, that's a really good one. With the bottom one, if we know that doctors are leaving and they've got patients with intellectual needs or different needs, to bring another doctor on board in a consult or introduce them, so they give them a little bit more time to get to know.
Yeah.
Correct, a bit of a handover, and perhaps make that person feel a bit more comfortable.
And that's another thing I thought of when you were saying that. Sometimes it's a good idea to have, for the patient, to get to know two doctors. One reason why, because if one doctor's on holidays or if another doctor's on holidays or sick, they've still got that other doctor they can trust.
Absolutely, that's so important, that's so good. I like that idea.
Staff should understand who to contact. Staff should send an SMS reminder. Staff should call the client to remind them about their appointment. Staff should help the person put the appointment in their diary and to explain to the client as well. Yes. Staff should tell them if the doctor is running late. Staff should support me with the forms. Staff should support people with a quiet place to wait and making them feel comfortable. I'm adding some things to it.
Ad-libbing.
Say that again.
Ad-libbing.
Yeah, ad-libbing, yeah. What do you call it? Yeah. Easy read information is like simple words, plain English, less jargon, which Reinforce had on a t-shirt going way back in the 1980s on when we were trying to close these institutions down. And we wrote on the t-shirt, plain English, less jargon. Using pictures, which is another good example for people to, if they can't read it all. And the pictures is to explain to them on where do they want to go or who do they want to see or, all that. Yeah. Clear information and making sure I understand or people understand with a disability. Talk to me and listen to me. Ask me what I need. Be aware of my needs. Do not talk for me. Remind me of any appointments, so always make sure when you're with the client, make sure that the client feels comfortable with you. Make sure the client wants to ask you a question, or you just say, would you like a question, or would you like, you know what I'm trying to say, don't you?
Yeah, just to making sure that you've supported in the best way you can. Yeah. So reasonable adjustments, improving accessibility for people with an intellectual disability through small changes. Support community members to feel safe and comfortable when accessing healthcare. Support the rights of people with disabilities to the enjoyment of the highest attainability standard of health. Our legal obligation to ensure primary health care is accessible to everyone without discrimination, which is really important. Reflect and share how you will implement reasonable adjustments to improve accessibility for everyone attending your clinic. Now, Sarah, I'm going to ask you, what are you going to do when you go back to your clinic? Can you incorporate any of these?
The first thing I think we can do is use an image book for people to be able to point at what they want. It's probably the most important thing that we can do.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any ideas of what you can take? I mean, I know you're sort of doing, oh, sorry, Joanna.
No, I was just going to say, I think more just making people aware, because I find a lot of people at the clinic, if they're not aware, they get frustrated and they're straight on the defense when it's like you probably don't even know this person's not being rude or aggressive, they're literally just confused. And you're confused, so just take a moment and, I guess,
Absolutely. So I think
be
that's
less
why,
on the defense.
Yeah, I think that's why identification is so important, because you can't just look at someone and presume to know everything about them. So, or that they're understanding, or they may need a bit longer to process. So,
And have information maybe in people, whether it's in flyers or of other providers and organisations, depending on what help they're after. That you can offer a starting point for.
We just sent out to our supervisors like a big massive book full of like, you know, all the types of types of disabilities and all that kind of stuff, so that they can basically just like click into it. Obviously you don't know what disability someone has, but just have that knowledge behind it as well.
Yeah, that's really good.
And just recognising that you're not the only point of support for someone, that there are other organisations and groups in the community that they can go to, and not kind of, you know, I feel like sometimes there's that opinion of, well, you've come to me, so I have to give you everything. I think it's important to recognise that potentially the place that you work at can't actually provide every support that this client might need, and be proactive in saying, hey, actually, did you know that this place exists, or have you heard of this, you know, event or group? I think that's helpful too.
That's really important, because I do, when I speak to a lot of doctors or clinics in the area, they don't know where to send people to, and they don't know what they don't know. So I think that's really important that, you know, somehow we get some list happening or of what people can provide or where they can help, because it's really important to know that information.
Yeah, and can I give, what's the matter?
Just say resource slide.
Resources.
Resources.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to give them an example on with me when I had an epileptic fit, because I was in a CAU at the time in store, and there was.
What's a CAU?
A CAU is a community residential unit, which they had way back in the olden days of the 80s. But I had an epileptic fit in the bath in that time, and because of it was hot water and cold water, but it was pretty warm. And when I had the fit, there was lucky that there was Lindsay there and Mary Cavorti there at the CAU, because we didn't have any chain or that on the doors in those days, where they'll, you know. So they got me out of the bath, and then I had to go back down to the institution, and I got in serious trouble for it. Yeah, because I had to go back down to senior girls in the ward and stay there for a month or two. For my punishment, for me having a fit in the bath. Because that's the thing, when people are epileptics, you're not allowed to, they aren't allowed to have a bath at all. Because it's the steam of the water that goes to their brain that can bring on a fit. Yeah, so you didn't know about that? No. Well, you know now. Yeah. And I'm going to let you know too, because I can feel it that you didn't know. I've got been wanting me, I have, and I can sense it, you know. That with the lights as well, that when the lights flash, they will have a fit, so don't take them to any flashing lights like that, because they can have a fit. Yeah. So, I've got clairvoyant, I have, and my mum had it.
Oh, read our hearts.
But I could feel it that you didn't know.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. You read a room very well.
I can read people's body languages, you know.
Yeah, you do.
And I've seen you before too, I have. I have, yes. You're in trouble. You look familiar. No, you're not in trouble, but I've seen you. Yes. But, you know, you look familiar. So, yes.
Jane's got a great memory of faces and people.
I do, yeah.
So we have got a toolkit that lovely Nicole's going to bring up for me. And it's stuff that we will send you. We can send this through.
Absolutely.
So we'll get your emails if we don't have them, so we can send it through. It's just got some really, really great, like easy language things that you can use, and lots of information on there. So I think you can take that all back and perhaps use that in your clinics or wherever you're working. Lots of resources and things like that. So we will email this out to everyone.
There's things like letters in there that's in an easy read. They've been developed by people with an intellectual disability that work for the Council for Intellectual Disability Service. And, you know, things that we were talking about, like a person, whether they need to have a longer appointment or what their actual disability, all of that. perhaps a profile could be developed with the person that would sit on their file, and that alert could pop up and you go to the file. We are looking and working with My Health Record to actually try and promote where that might sit in there as an opportunity, so that that profile or information can be done by the person or their supporters. And then for clinics or for specialist GPs, AMBOs, allied health professionals, anyone can actually access that if they are linked with My Health Record, to be able to access that. But stay tuned, that's what we're working on. We have met with them and we're hoping to get a way forward, so we'll let you know if we actually get to achieve that.
The other thing here that I could quickly see is that there's some, I don't know if I've seen it on this one, oh yes, the Royal College of General Practitioners. There's a video guide for receptionist administration. What a good tool for when you've got a new receptionist and you just want to, you know, give them a bit of information as they start, or a new nurse or anything, part of an induction. So then they're understanding all about that. So there's some really good resources there, something for accreditation as well. So I think that'd be great if you have the time to read that and incorporate it into your workspaces.
And this is the documents as well.
Yeah, this is one that we did as a sample, so that you could have it on your front desk. So, you know, because if you're asking someone maybe what's your address for a new patient, they might not be able to tell you that, or they're feeling a little bit nervous, so you can always point to their driver's licence, perhaps if they've got one, or something like that, or if you're needing their Medicare card. They might not be able to understand at the time because of processing, or they're feeling uncomfortable or things like that. So that was a really good way we could sort of have that there. We've also got some, I think for chronic conditions, didn't we have something done for people with disabilities to be able to provide to our GPs?
Yeah, there's some training that the Council for Intellectual Disability is helping to deliver around making chronic healthcare plan information in more of an easy English format and easy read version for people to have a better understanding themselves of what information is going in that plan.
And also for our lovely nurses, PDSAs, so they can do their plan, do study action. They could do an intellectual disability one for QPIP for their quality improvement PIP payment. So we've got all that ready for you guys too, that you can incorporate.
And I'll just quickly bring up, because I'm always thinking, back in my days in the institution, when people had epileptic fits, which they'll fall on the floor, the staff used to put the keys in their mouths, which they don't now. Yes, because they, you know, the keys can damage their teeth while they're having that fit, and they don't do it now. But way back in the institution's days, that's what they used to do.
Right.
Yes.
So what do they use now if someone's having a fit?
They don't use anything now. All they have to do is move everything away, put them on their side, put a pillow under their head, and just to make sure that they are okay, let them, once they've had the fit, just start just talking to them slowly, and just let them try and come back out. You know, yeah. Okay. Because I'm an epileptic. Oh well, I had a brain surgery, but Professor O'Brien still says that I'm an epileptic, which I will be all my life. Right. Because it can come back sometimes after you've had a brain surgery. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. And there's the Epilepsy Foundation. If you want to Google the Epileptic Foundation, and it will tell you a lot of information about that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's all right.
So on behalf of the Spider Project, I want to thank you very much. Thanks for listening to me and Aunty Jane and Nicole and Kerry. It was so nice to get to meet you all and see such passion. We're all so passionate about this, but seeing you guys be so passionate about it makes me warms my heart. It really does, because you know, we just need to make this all happen, and so it's business as usual for everyone, and everyone feels comfortable enough to get what they need, as in healthcare, or go where they need.
How does an appointment card help you?
When you see the doctor, she calls your name.
What do you do with your appointment card? Do you put it up on the fridge or in your bag?
Yes, up on the fridge.
And does that help you remember?
Yes, I need appointment card.
And what do you like from your doctor? How does your doctor help you?
She helps you good.
And does she always, is it important that she listens?
Yes, she does listen, Dr. Prune.
And why is that important?
She's a nice lady, doctor.
And she gets to know you?
Yes.
And she knows what you need? How does your doctor help you by listening?
They do help me. And my sisters. They see the same doctor.
Is it important to see the same doctor?
Yes.
She listens?
He listens and she answers you.
That's really important, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, how can the people at the desk, at the doctors, help you?
By talking to me
Listening?
and not talking to the staff.
And do you feel that they listen to you?
Yes,
And how important is that?
very important,
Why is it important?
because they've got to talk to me.
What happens if they don't talk to you?
I don't know.
How do they know how to help you?
I don't know. Just listen to me.
How do you like to have your appointments made?
I go up and I can myself.
And what about getting reminders?
Yeah, I do that too.
How do you get a reminder?
When the doctor says if the doctor said she wants to see me in 2 weeks, I go up and I say doctor wants to see me in 2 weeks.
What do you want them to know about being a good doctor for you?
A good doctor, she's always a good doctor to me.
What makes her a good doctor?
I don't know, she just listens to me.
And understands you?
Yes,
Gives you as much time as you need?
yes,
Why is it important that doctors give you enough time?
because I do.
So if you could tell a doctor something about making sure that they're giving people enough time, what would you say?
I'll just say you're not giving me enough time. I like going to doctors.
Why do you like going to the doctors?
I don't know, I just like the doctor.
That's really important. Do you think everyone should have a good doctor?
Yes,
Why is that?
I don't know, that they should.
Do you reckon they'd be healthier if they did?
Yes,
Yeah. Do you like your doctor?
Yes.
And do they give you a reminder card or a phone call?
No, it's on the phone.
On the phone?
Yes.
And the phone's good?
Yes.
And your doctor helps you? Do they listen to you and understand what you need?
Yes.
And do you like going to the doctor?
Yes.
And what would you tell your doctor? Would you tell them that they're doing a good job?
Yes.
And do they help keep you healthy?
Yes.